The first question is, Steve, how do you motivate unmotivated clients? And obviously, with your more recent business endeavors, I would like to hear the business aspect of that stuff as well, because I think that that's also applicable.
Yeah, I think motivating unmotivated people, I'm going to give you two sides of this. The first side is like angry Steve side, which isn't necessarily the right answer, but I think it can be applied in certain scenarios. Is if they're unmotivated, then they're just never going to reach their goal, and let them know that.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to like actually put the effort in, get motivated, and do the damn thing. But while that's not the right answer, there's the real power, I would say, comes down to that person to connect whatever it is they're currently doing to the goal that they truly desire. A good coach is going to help bridge those gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Now, motivation is important in small bursts, in small pieces. And if they are never motivated, like, what the fuck are we doing? Again, first point. But the reality is, you need to fall in love with the process, and you need to fall in love with the ongoing kind of striving for that goal and the micro wins along the way. So if I come to you and, hey, I want to lose 100 pounds, sure. But guess what happens after I lose 40? Like, man, I still got 60 to go. So a good coach will break down those goals,
Mm-hmm.
smaller micro goals that we can celebrate along the way. They're going to tie yesterday, today's, and tomorrow's efforts towards achieving that long-term big picture goal, but also those smaller goals. And we're going to continue to have temp checks around how somebody's feeling with certain things. For example, I love lifting heavy. When you change my program, Andrew, to not lift heavy, I'm like, man, I hate this fucking thing. And I think like I struggled through it for a week or two, and I show, I'm like, Andrew, why am I doing this? And it's like, well, we're going to help with your joints, your tendons, your ligaments, and all of these things. So that way we continue to
Mm-hmm.
lift heavy without injury. And I'm like, all right, I'll just get it done. I don't love it, but I understand it, big picture goal. And then 6 months from now, I'm not going to care. And it's just the ability to have those conversations, I would say. So if they're not motivated, they
Mm-hmm.
don't understand why they're doing something. I would say, I'd love your opinion on a psychological sense, Andrew. Obviously, mine is coming from my point of view. But
Mm-hmm.
business wise, you need to have people who want to achieve their goals in your business. Otherwise, what are we doing? That sucks for you, and they're not going to stay. They're not going to keep buying from you, and you're not going to be able to help them solve their problem. So, making
Yeah.
sure that people understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, is extremely important. It's incumbent on a coach, a good coach especially, to be able to tie those things together.
Yeah. And I mean, mine's generally pretty much, I would say, very similar in the way that it's really important for coaches to understand like the deep rooted reasons behind the superficial actual behaviors. And if you can't really connect the dots for people, they're really going to see it as busy work. And let's be honest, no one really has time for that these days. If they actually are trying to make some meaningful progress. So backing up for a second, it's kind of like, well, what is motivation inherently? And when I hear this question a lot, is like, what I'm picturing in my head is a coach grabbing a client and like repositioning their head to look in the direction that they want. And the client's just like trying to fight them every, step of the way. And I think that it creates a really unpleasant mutual experience for both the coach and the client. And so I would, suggest a repositioning or a reframe of like, well, why are you trying to force someone to do something they don't inherently want to do? At the end of the day, I mean, if you ever try to force an adult to do something they don't want to do, and it's not something that has significant long term and immediate repercussions, I think you're going to have a lot less leverage to change their behavior. And so when someone comes to you and they say, I want to lose 5 pounds, that's really not long term leverage, nor is it short term benefit. And so when you think about how that changes the status quo, of course, they're not really going to be super vested in that. And as soon as the person that called them fat that caused them to go down the spiral is no longer around, or maybe they have some vacation, maybe their mother-in-law comes in, or maybe their father-in-law says a snide comment that causes the whole cascade of like, I need to lose weight. Well, we know that the trans-theoretical model of behavior change, they now know they have a problem, or they're now pre-contemplative. Now they're contemplative. Oh gosh, what do I do about this? And now you have to really solidify and connect that on a very deeply rooted level, usually externally. Because when we try to say like, hey, you don't want this enough, and we kind of like make it a moral thing of you versus good or bad, it's not really something that most people, when they fail, are going to feel super comfortable with. So we want to remove a lot of that judgment, and we just want to really try to understand, what the long-term ramifications of inaction are, because there's a cost to everything. And that means if you don't change, nothing is going to change. And that's where I usually like to offer that perspective to clients that, hey, like, we're not making the progress we want. What could potentially be, if we draw this out far enough, how is your life going to be? And are you okay with that? And sometimes that is a reality check that you need to ask. Although in my experience, usually most people, when they're invested in stuff, are going to eventually take a turn and do the things they're supposed to do. It might just take a little bit extra time for them to really understand what that looks like. But for the most part, people will do the things that they prioritize and the things that they inherently think are important. Your goal as a coach is to like understand what that is beyond what they're telling you, and kind of go from there.